On this subject, establishing healthy habits with your children is a common goal, but are we placing too much importance on every meal they eat? Here to discuss their thoughts on the most common food complaints is today's parenting panel. Julie Cole is a mother of 6. Dave Eddy is a father of 3. And we just heard from Dr. Vera Tarman, who's also on our panel, author of Food Junkies. Thank you for joining us and running over. Appreciate that. You know, for right or for wrong, you know, my parents raised me to finish everything on your plate and you're not moving until you do, which seems ridiculous today. And as you were talking about rewiring, what would you say, you know, in terms of parents being the ones who feed our kids, would be the biggest complaint in your household, but on behalf of you or your kids?
I think most parents, I think food is an issue that most parents would say is the biggest issue, their biggest concern when raising their kids. You know what, I actually have a child on the autism spectrum. So I'm involved in the autism community. So I actually know kids who cannot bring food past their lips without gagging. That to me is real food issues. I've got some picky eaters, you know, and I think we have to keep in perspective. You have some picky eaters. It's really, you know, it's not that big a deal. I just keep presenting the food. I don't do the, you're going to sit there until it's, because you know what, you don't want mealtime to be unpleasant. I was a picky eater, so I understand. I just make sure I provide enough variety, and if you don't like what's getting served up, there's going to be some bread and some raw carrots around, and nobody's had scurvy or starved yet, you know?
Dave, problems for you?
I would think with 6 kids, the problem would be getting all the food on the plate.
It depends what's served up. Yeah, it depends what's served up.
We don't really have huge food issues. I have one slow eater, somebody who takes a really long time, and we just have learned to let him take his time and finish his food. But yeah, we put it on the plate and hope that they eat it, and usually they do.
When we talk about the development of kids, and you know, from a young age on, I mean, their food habits, what they're served, how they're served, and what the situation is, can very definitely develop into something serious if you're not careful. Yeah. When a child doesn't want to eat, like just isn't hungry, or will only have a couple of bites. I mean, you don't want to jump to the, uh-oh, this child's going to develop a food issue. But, you know, what would you suggest for parents to monitor to make sure that at least they have a healthy attitude towards it?
Well, you know, I think that one of the things is that we are not careful with, and I'd be interested in your response, is to, oftentimes kids won't eat that food because they want the better food, in other words, the junk food. And I would suggest just don't have it in the house. Don't offer it. Don't say, have a little bit of eat this and then you get that. Like if you kind of build that, this is the better, I'm sure kids are just going to want to do that.
So the Twinkie incentive, not the way to go.
Yeah, and the other thing that I think is really important is that the parents model the behavior. Like, I mean, if mom is a food addict, if she's eating chips and whatever, how is she going to expect her kids not to want to do that? Yeah. Yeah.
There's one other thing. I'd like to say something about vegetables.
Please do.
My honest opinion about vegetables is, and kids, you heard me right, so you're welcome. I think that a lot of the problem is that they're not prepared properly. Like, take the humble Brussels sprout. I now think of the way my mother prepared them, just boil the hell out of them, roll these like pale green things onto your plate. Now, kids, eat your vegetables. Now, me, it's cast iron pan, cut them in half, fry them with some pancetta or bacon. My kids love Brussels sprouts. They will gobble up, you know, say, oh, we're having chicken and Brussels sprouts. Yay! So I think that's part of it. We tell kids, eat those terribly prepared vegetables or whatever this thing you don't like. I think parents should also prepare the food better.
Try to make it attractive to them.
And I found that one thing that's really worked for us is I involve the kids in the meal planning. So, I mean, there's 6 kids, right? Not everybody's going to like every meal. In fact, I think there's 2 meals that everybody likes. But there's going to be something that everyone likes. If we're doing drumsticks and corn on the cob, okay, well, you don't like the drumsticks. You have to have 1 bite. You don't have to have the whole thing. You do have to have 1 bite because my kids understand and they've all experienced that getting used to things. Like, they've all had that thing where they've had 1 bite 10 times and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, this isn't so bad.
And the cooking, by the way. If you get them involved with the cooking, they become very invested in the final meal, and to me, they're more likely to eat it.
Is there an age, doctor, where you think that, you know, your eating patterns, you know, obviously it's going to change in life, but are getting set, like an age through which that happens?
Well, I mean, in terms of just learning, but I think that we can develop. Unfortunately, we can develop an addiction or a preference, a strong preference to something. I really like your Brussels sprout idea. I mean,
Try it. Brussels sprouts can be
And
delicious.
Jedi, I love
That's
it.
not addictive, you know, and I'm sure a kid would prefer that over chips,
Yeah.
and you know, or cereal, which is so much easier to do for the parents.
It's part of the maturing process. As you grow older, I actually prefer
Yeah.
vegetables to
Sure.
chips now. You know what I mean? Or to sweets. I'm not really a sweets type of guy. The other thing, green smoothies. Kids also love to prepare those. A couple of bananas, slip
kids
in the
love making
spinach.
smoothies.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
love
You know,
making
they'll actually
smoothies.
drink their spinach.
My kids
That's
also
one of my
love
tricks.
to eat what they've grown in our garden.
Oh,
If
that's
they've
true, too.
grown
So
it-
again, it comes down to, it's interesting, the preparation angle.
The other thing, we don't do dessert. I don't know if that's a
That's
common
great.
thing. We've never
Yeah,
been
that's
like, you
great.
finish that and you get dessert.
Yeah, because you see what happens is when you introduce a high density, a high caloric density like dessert, what ends up happening is the preference goes towards the sweeter because we are wired to prefer sweet. So if you don't even introduce it, then you're going to love the cherries, the smoothies,
That's what you're getting.
because that's the sweetest you're getting.
Thank you all for coming in. Great ideas. Thank you.
Thank you.
For more about today's parenting panel, check out their bios on our website.